Hello, I'm Phoenix City Council Member Carlos Garcia with District 8. We will never replace in-person teaching, but during these trying times, our children still need to continue to learn. The City of Phoenix is proud to partner with both the Osborne and Roosevelt school districts to bring you Phoenix TV Classroom Study Hall. Youth and education is a priority for Phoenix. That's why the city is bringing you the study hall to your home during this next hour right here on Phoenix TV. Learning should never stop, so get ready for class. Here's the study hall.
Good morning, students. My name is Bridget Smith, and I am the principal at Cesar Chavez Leadership Academy in the Roosevelt School District. It is my pleasure to talk with you guys this morning, and I'd like to welcome you to our read aloud. This morning I'm going to read a book to you that I think has a beautiful message. And as we're reading, I would really like for you to think about what you think the message in the story is and what lesson that we can take away from the main character. So in today's book, we are going to be reading a story called Imani's Moon. The author of this story is Janae Brown Wood, and the illustrator of our story is Hazel Mitchell. All right. Again, the title is Imani's Moon, and as you're listening to our read aloud and looking at all of the pictures, your goal is to think about what you feel the message of this book is and what you can learn from our main character, Imani. Imani was the smallest child in her village. "Look at tiny Imani," the other children teased. "She's no higher than a lion's cub's knee." "Careful," they called to her. "Don't let the meerkats stomp on your head." "Mini Imani, you'll never accomplish anything." Day in and day out, the children teased her, and Imani began to believe them and what they had to say. Every night, Imani's mom lifted her spirits with stories. This night, Mama told her of Olapa, the goddess of the moon who fought a great battle against the god of the sun and triumphed. "Do you think that I could do something great like Olapa?" asked Imani. "I do," answered Mama. "Even something like touching the moon?" "Even that," said Mama, "but it is you who must believe." Mama kissed her forehead. "Usiku mwe." "Good night, Imani." "Good night, Mama." That night, Olapa and Imani battled side by side in Imani's dreams. Together, they protected the people of Earth from danger. They flew through the sky and guarded the moon. Imani stood tall and brave on the moon with Olapa beside her. The next morning, Imani woke up, inspired to do something great. Today, she told herself, I will touch the moon. Those beautiful pictures and all of those beautiful colors. Later that day, Imani made her way through the village. "Look, it's Imani the ant," called one of the teasing children. "Where are you off to?" teased another. "Going to catch a ride on a beetle's back?" "I am going to touch the moon," answered Imani. The children laughed, and they followed her. As the moon grew bright in the late day sky, Imani began to climb the tallest tree. The bark scraped her small hands and legs. On a branch above, Nyoka the snake appeared. "What's going on?" he hissed. "I am going to touch the moon," answered Imani. "That's impossible," Nyoka jeered. "It's much too high." Imani climbed on. As she got higher and higher, climbing became harder and harder. Notice the snake that's in that tree. She stretched herself to reach the next branch, but lost her footing, and she fell to the ground with a large thump. "Maybe I won't be able to touch the moon," she sighed. I wonder if any of you have ever fallen out of a tree. Okay. That night, Mama told Imani about Anasi, the small spider who captured a snake to gain a name for himself. "Mama, do you believe that a spider so small and weak could really capture a snake so long and so quick?" Imani asked. "I do," answered Mama. "Even if nobody else believes it?" Imani asked. "A challenge is only impossible until somebody accomplishes it," Mama said. "Imani, it is only you who must believe." Imani drifted to sleep and dreamed that she could climb to the highest tree in her village, capture a snake, and made a name for herself. Here they are looking into the night sky at the beautiful stars. The next day, Imani searched the village and gathered twigs, leaves, sticky berries, and rope. Then she headed back to the tallest tree. She sat down and got to work. "What's Imani the Tiny up to today?" teased the children. "I am going to touch the moon," Imani said. As the moon began to appear, Imani pulled her creation onto her arms. She spread her arms out wide and sprinted past the tallest tree as quickly as she could. Imani's wings caught a gust of wind. She soared high and as high as the treetops. "What are you, doing up here?" asked Sakwi the chimpanzee, confused to see a flying human. "I am going to touch the moon," Imani called. "You, can't do that. Give up. Give up," mocked Sakwi. Look at that monkey in the tree and Imani flying high above. Wow. Imani flew on. Then suddenly, a strong burst of wind, too mighty for her delicate wings, sent her sailing into a tree with a crash. The children laughed and left her behind. "I give up," Imani sighed. Notice her crash into the tree with those wings that she created. I also notice all of the children from the village here at the bottom pointing and laughing as Imani is trying so hard. Heading back home, Imani heard her village gathered in celebration. The young warriors were performing the adumu, the jumping dance. Over and over again, the warriors jumped high into the sky, their heads caressing the clouds. Cheers and chants rang from the proud villagers. One of the warriors jumped higher than any other. This warrior seemed to fly. Imani could not look away. She cheered the loudest for him. Notice Imani coming back to her village, and all of the people are gathered together today in celebration. I notice even over here that she is cheering loud and proud for that high jumper. After the celebration, Mama and Imani returned home. Too tired for a story, Imani went straight to sleep. Her dreams danced with visions of the Adumu. The cheers and chants from her tribe still echoed in her head. When morning broke, Imani went to the tallest tree. The teasing children followed her. "She's going to climb it again?" they hollered. But instead, Imani jumped. 1 jump, 2 jumps, 3. Each jump took Imani higher and higher and higher. Imani jumped all day. As the sky grew darker, Bundy the owl flew by. "What are you doing?" he asked. "I am going to touch the moon," Imani answered. "Don't fool yourself." "You won't make it," hooted Bundy. But Imani jumped on. Her body grew very tired. Her legs ached, her feet throbbed, and the children continued to taunt. I want you to stop, and I really want you to think about again the challenge at the beginning of this clip. I asked you to think about the message that we could learn from Imani as we listen to her story. So you're thinking in your head, what is Imani doing and what is the message she's trying to give me as the main character? Okay? We're thinking as we hear each page and see each illustration. Okay. But like a warrior, she jumped higher than each jump before. In her mind, she could hear only the cheers and chants of her proud village. She could see only herself as one of the warriors rising up from the earth. She kept her eyes on the moon above and felt herself getting closer and closer. With a final push of her legs, Imani jumped once more. And Imani soared through the night sky. She landed on the face of the moon. "Olapa," Imani called. "I am here. I am Imani, and I have made it to the moon." "So you have," said a voice in the wind. "Welcome." Imani clapped. She laughed. She sang. She rolled in the moon dust and danced with excitement. As she celebrated, she noticed something shiny. I want you to look really close at this illustration because here we see Imani. But notice in the illustration and all the swirls that this must be Olapa. There's a lot of detail on every page. Imani picked up the thing that dazzled her eye, and she turned it over in her hands. It was a small, round moon rock, her own tiny moon. "A gift for you, Imani the Great," said the voice. "Thank you, goddess of the moon," Imani said. Feeling lighter than ever before, Imani jumped one last time and floated from the moon down toward the waiting earth. Down from the sky came Imani, the small girl with the small moon in her hand. All was quiet. No one taunted or hissed. No one mocked. No one hooted. Notice the gift that Imani has of the small moon rock. And notice her confidence as she was floating down fulfilled, not hearing any of those negative voices that she can't do what she would like to do. That night, Imani called to her mama. "Can I tell you a story tonight, Mama?" she asked. Which one? Asked Mama. It's the tale of a girl who touched the moon. Mama listened as Imani told her story. Where did you hear such a tale? Asked Mama. Imani opened her hands and revealed the glowing moon rock, so small and so beautiful. It's my story, Mama, said Imani. I am the girl who touched the moon, and I was welcomed by Olapa. I am the one who believed. That comes to the conclusion of our book, okay, Imani's Moon. And I want to take you back to the very beginning of our story where I asked you to think about the message that we could learn from Imani in this story. So as you're thinking, I'm going to remind you of some of the amazing things that happened in our book. Okay? We know that the story started out where several of the other children in Imani's village were being quite unkind. They were teasing and bothering Imani and making fun of her size. I wonder if some of you have ever experienced somebody in your life that hasn't been very kind to you. Unfortunately, this happens, but Imani gives us a great message of how to continue to move forward. You'll notice that after all of that teasing, Imani talked with her mom all of the time. And her mom would tell her beautiful stories of what was happening in the world and different beliefs that her tribe had. I hope that each of you have somebody special in your life that you can talk to when you need that support. It might be a mom, it might be a granddad or abuelo, it might be a teacher. And I hope that anytime you have difficulty, you can go to one of those people for help and support and love. After talking with her mom, Imani made the plan of wanting to be able to touch the moon, just like the goddess Olapa. Imani showed very hard work. If you remember back in the story, she started by going to several different places in her village to try and reach the moon. Imani came across and worked on climbing trees to get closer to the moon, and that didn't work. Imani continued to practice learning or pretending how to make wings through things that were in her village, like leaves and sticks, and that didn't work either, but she never gave up. Imani had examples and role models of people that she looked up to. And I hope in your life you can find people who are special to you and who give you great examples in order to keep reaching for your dreams. Imani used the examples of her role models to jump and practice getting closer to the moon because that was her goal. She jumped so much that her legs hurt and her body hurt, but she never gave up, even if other people weren't being supportive. Okay. Through her hard work and through her dreams, Imani was able to reach her goal and end up landing on the moon. The story gives us a really special connection because you might be thinking, can someone really get to the moon? But she was able to find that special souvenir that showed her hard work, which was her moon rock, which became her own special moon as an example of all the work she did and the goal that she had. As we reach that conclusion of the story, as we think back, Imani was able to tell her story to her mom and explain all of her hard work, explain the goal that she reached, that she was able to make it to the moon, and her mom helped celebrate her. So I want you to finish thinking. What did we learn from Imani in the story? What was her message to us as the main character? What I learned from Imani is that it is always important to have confidence in ourselves, to set goals for what we are interested in doing, and always working to the hardest of our ability to meet those goals and to share and celebrate the progress of the goals that we make. I think that Imani is an amazing role model for each of us. As we conclude our read aloud this morning, I'm going to finish by reading with you our author's note from our book, Imani's Moon. On the plains of Tanzania and Kenya live the Maasai people, an African tribe known for their bright robes and their cultural jumping dance called the Adumu. During Adumu, warriors from the tribe stand in a circle and try to out-jump each other, leaping high with their strong legs while barely even moving their arms. Sometimes the dance is done while the warriors chant or sing songs. This ritual reminds me of a beautiful and artistic ballet and compelled me to research the Maasai people through several documentaries, books, and photographs. I soon became inspired to write Imani's story. Africa became an ideal setting, and the Maasai, the perfect tribe to nurture a strong and perseverant character like Imani. African people such as the Maasai have many cultural stories and mythologies that they pass on through storytelling called spoken narratives. Imani's mother carries on this tradition by telling Imani of Olapa, the moon goddess of the Maasai mythology, and of Anansi, the spider. Passing on stories to eager listeners is one of the reasons why I became an author. Just as Imani enthusiastically passes her story on to Mama, I am thrilled to pass it on to you. Thank you guys for joining me this morning as we read together a beautiful story called Imani's Moon by the exceptional author Janae Brown-Wood. I am Bridget Smith, principal at Cesar Chavez, and I hope that I get to see you all again soon. Take care. Bye.
Hi, good morning. I'm Brenna Annabali at Encanto Elementary School.
I'm Jenny Davey, and I am at Solano Elementary School.
Today our lesson is going to be building a water filtration system. So Jenny, I was washing my hands this morning and I kept thinking, how do we get water? Where does it come from?
Well, it comes out of the faucet, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
but where does it come from the faucet? Like, how do I get it from my faucet? How do we get clean water?
Well, have you ever been out walking around and seen a canal here in Phoenix?
I have. Does it go from the canal straight to my house?
Well, have you ever looked at the water in the canal?
Oh,
Yeah, it's not very clean, is it?
No.
No. So we can't take it right from the canal and bring it into our house.
So what do we do?
Well, it has to be filtered first.
Oh, so we take the canal water and we filter it and then it comes into our houses?
Yeah, so when they filter the water, they take it to a special place and it goes through a process where it removes all of the dirt and other things that are in the water. So then it's clean and we can use it in our house.
Do you think you could show me how to build a water filtration system?
Well, as it happens, I have a very good friend and she taught me how to filter water. So today we are going to show you and you how to filter some water. First, you're going to need some water. Next, you're going to need some dirt. We have to have the water be dirty. So Miss Annabale and I already put some dirt right here and we mixed it up with our water and we shook it around so it's all muddy and gross. And we need to let that water sit for at least a half an hour, if not more. So we'll be coming back. Once we're done with our water, we have to build a filter. So as you can see, we've got some rocks and we've got some smaller rocks. We have a little bit of sand that's kind of a coarse sand. We have this charcoal and we have this fine sand, kind of like what you would find at the beach or at the edge of the river. So, how do you think we're going to take all of the dirt out of that water? What are we going to do? What do you think we should do?
Wow, I don't know. Maybe we could build something using the rocks and the sand?
You know, our planet actually has a system like this. In our planet, under the layers of the surface of the earth, there are rocks and sand and all sorts of things that filter the water as it goes down through the dirt.
So Earth naturally filters water. So we're going to try and create something that's going to look like how, or mimic how, the Earth filters water naturally.
Pretty cool, right?
I think so. I'm excited.
So how do you think we should use these things to create a filter for water? What do you think we should put together?
Well, I see that we have some bottles and some jars. Maybe we could use the bottles to help us make something? Oh, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, if we cut the bottoms off of the bottles, then we can pour the stuff inside, right?
Oh, I see how you did it. You cut the tops off, or the bottoms off of the bottles. But what did you do down here? What is this?
Oh, coffee filter. If you have family who drinks coffee, they need to put the water through the coffee grounds and it drips through here so that we're not drinking coffee grounds. It just makes the water that tastes delicious and helps keep the adults awake.
Sure.
So we take a coffee filter and put it over the end, and then we secure that with a rubber band so that it doesn't fall off.
So it looks like we made one with sand, one with rocks, and one with sand and rocks. Why did you do that, Mrs. Davy? Why did you make them different ways?
Well, I want us to do a little experiment. I want us to see what works the best. So if we try one that just has sand, what do you think is going to happen? Will the water be clean once it goes through the sand and through the filter? What do you think is going to happen when we put some dirty water through these rocks? Do you think it will be clean once it's gone through the rocks? Maybe, maybe not. What do you think will happen when we put the water through all of these layers? Let's see if we can pull this down a little bit so you guys can see all the layers. What do you think is going to happen to our dirty water if we put it through all of those layers? We will come back in a little bit and we will test it out.
All right, boys and girls, I'm going to ask you to get a piece of paper and a pen or a crayon or a marker, and I want you to predict or do your best thinking of what filter do you think is going to make that water clean. If you think it's the sand, draw a picture of the sand. If you think it's the rocks, draw a picture of the rocks. If you think it's the sand and the rocks, draw that. Then you're going to add your dirty water to each one of those filters. So Miss Davy, would you like to add the dirty water to those filters? And then we're going to let it sit, and we'll come back to it in 30 minutes and see what is clean.
Or if it's clean.
Or if it's clean.
Okay, here we go. 1, 2, and 3. I can't wait to see what happens.
All right, boys and girls, let's come back that we've had it sit for about 30 minutes and look at our filtration systems. Get out that picture that you drew of what you guessed would be the best filter. This was just the sand, and look at the water. This was just the rocks, and look at the water. Wow. And this was both the sand and the rocks, And look at that water. I predicted that the rocks would be the best. Was my prediction correct?
No.
No.
I'd say
Oh
no.
my gosh, that water is still so dirty.
It's pretty gross.
No way.
You know, the sand looks like it did a better job than just the rocks.
It did, but it also looks like
Yeah.
you need both of them
It kind of
to
looks
get
like
that water
lemonade.
clean. Don't drink it. It's not lemonade.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, you know, it looks like when we combined the rocks and the sand together, we ended up with water that looks pretty clean.
Yeah, this was an interesting experiment.
You know, I wonder if there are other ways that you could filter water to make it clean.
Do you think, boys and girls, that you could create something that would also filter water like this?
I wonder, I bet you guys can have some amazing ideas.
What do you think would happen if we added color, like food coloring to this?
Do you think it would get filtered out?
I don't know.
Ooh, that would be really interesting to try.
You guys should try that at home.
Well,
See
and
what happens.
This reminds me a little bit of like cooking oil. I wonder if we mixed in cooking oil with our sludgy water. I wonder if that cooking oil would get filtered out.
Those are some great ideas on how to get clean water.
Well, I'm just so glad that our planet has a way of naturally cleaning water and that our cities have a way of cleaning the water. Because if they didn't have those ways of making our water clean, wow, look at that. I wouldn't want to drink that. I would want to drink the filtered water. We're pretty lucky, aren't we?
We're so lucky.
You know, living in a desert isn't for everybody. It's awfully hot and we have to bring our water from other places. But people are pretty smart and they've figured out some great ways to filter the water so that we can drink it and use it to cook with and even use it for showers. Sometimes we even get to play outside in the water.
That's my favorite.
You know what? That makes me want to go outside and play.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Mrs. Davey, for showing us this experiment. I really loved working with you today. Thank you.
It was awesome. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, boys and girls.
Good morning, students. I'm Michael Roberts, Superintendent of the Osborne School District in Central Phoenix.
And I'm Quentin Boyd, Superintendent of the Roosevelt School District in South Phoenix.
We're pleased to have this partnership with the City of Phoenix to take Phoenix students on a new learning adventure right here on Phoenix TV.
Just because our school buildings are closed doesn't mean the learning stops.
We have the best, most creative teachers from Roosevelt and Osborne school districts on board to provide you with a great learning experience.
Okay, students, that's the bell, so the Phoenix TV Study Hall resumes. Here's your next lesson.
Hello, welcome to first and second grade science. My name is Ms. Soto. I am a second grade teacher at Cesar Chavez in the Roosevelt School District. A fun fact about me is that I was born in Mexico and I moved to the United States when I was in 6th grade. Today we'll be learning about the environment, so I hope you're ready.
You probably don't spend much time thinking about trash, not until it starts to smell or the bag is getting full. We all make trash every day, such as eggshells left over from breakfast, the plastic bag from your lunch, or an empty banana peel. Also, we bring a lot of papers home from school, and they don't all fit in the refrigerator. We usually throw a lot of this trash or waste into the garbage, but have you thought about what happens to all the trash? Well, it doesn't just magically disappear. What happens to the trash depends on what it's made of. For example, some waste decomposes. This means that it breaks down or rots. Have you ever taken a walk in the woods or gone on a hike? You may notice old leaves that fell last autumn or old logs. You may notice that if something is decomposing, it is slowly becoming brown and mushy. They decompose because those things were once alive. For example, the log and the leaves were once a part of the tree. We make waste that decomposes too. Usually this waste is usually made of things that were once alive, such as eggshells, banana peels, apple cores, and leftover food from our table. Like this apple, for example. As you can see in the first picture, it is very green, but in the second picture, we can see how it is starting to decompose since we see a brown spot, and in the last picture, we can see how our apple is now decomposed and now it is not safe to eat it. Instead of throwing it away, this decomposed fruit or also vegetables can also be used as compost, which is food for our gardens. But what about the waste that doesn't break down or rot? This waste goes into a dump, also known as a landfill. The waste ends up just sitting there, making a big smelly smell, and it will stay there for a very long time. Luckily, there is a way that you can get rid of your waste without adding to that mess by recycling. Recycling means taking waste and making it into something else. This is called the recycling symbol. It has 3 arrows because of the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, and recycle. Maybe you have a recycling bin at home, or you have one in your classroom. Things that you can recycle are paper, plastic, and metal. Let's check out what happens to the waste that you put into the recycling bin. First of all, the waste in the recycling bin is collected and it is put into 3 groups. All these different groups are plastic, metal, and paper. All of the plastic goes into one pile, all of the metal into another, and the paper also goes in another pile. Metal is taken into a special factory where it is crushed and squished together with metal from other recycling bins. This big lump of metal is then broken down into smaller pieces. Next, those smaller pieces are melted and then poured into molds shaped like blocks. This new block of metals are now sent to other factories where they can be used to make other things made of metal. So the metal cans that you throw in the recycling bin, they don't just go to a landfill, they get a new life as a new can or a piece of foil or even part of a bike or a car. Your old milk jug made of plastic can also be turned into something new too. Plastic is also taken to a special factory where the plastic is shredded into tiny bits and then melted in a really hot oven. And then it's made into little pellets. Factories can take these pellets and make them into new things, such as water bottles and food containers, and even bigger things like park benches, carpets, and even clothes. What about all those papers that you brought home and don't need anymore? Paper is recycled a little differently than metal and plastic. Paper is taken to a recycling center where it is mixed with other papers in a whole bunch of water. Once it gets all goopy, the goop is then smashed between the 2 rollers. It is then squished into big flat sheets. The sheets are then left to dry. Then they are cut into pieces of new paper. This brand new sheets of paper can be used into creating amazing artwork. If you think about it, when we recycle, we are breaking down waste that doesn't decompose on its own, and that makes less waste for all of us. So keep recycling. Hello! Since we are learning about the environment, I have invited somebody that has been working with the environment very closely for many years. That person happens to be my dad. Dad, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi kids. So my name is Senor Soto, And for the last 30 years, I've been working very hard to take care of the environment.
Wow, that is a very long time. I bet you have answers for our questions today. Can kids help the environment?
Of course, anybody, kids and adults, can help the environment.
How can kids help the environment at home?
Well, I'm going to give a few examples, okay? For example, when you are not using the light, you need to turn it off. When you're going to brush your teeth, you don't need the water running while you brush your teeth. And it's very important that you recycle it at home. For example, you can recycle paper, wood, plastics, glass, newspaper. There's many items that you can recycle and not throw it to the regular trash. But very, very important, you need to teach your family members how to recycle, your parents, your siblings, your cousins, anybody, to recycle at home as well. Very, very crucial also. You need to water the plants, because plants, they actually clean the air that we breathe. So when we water plants, we're also taking care of the environment by cleaning the air that we are breathing.
Thank you for sharing all that knowledge with us. It is very important for us to also remember that at home, we can do a big part to save our environment. Since many of us, including myself, I am a teacher and I know I spend many hours at school, how can kids help the environment?
Well, the environment doesn't sleep. Also in school, you can take care of the environment. Another examples. You can use your paper also on the other side, so you don't waste more paper on doing homework assignments. Another way, you can also, when you're not using the water in the bathrooms, you can close it on so you don't waste water there. Same with lights. If you're not using the lights, turn it off. And again, teach your other friends, teach your teachers how to take care of the environment. Teach anybody that is in the school premises how to take care of the environment.
It's very important that also I know as a teacher, I enjoy when kids teach me what they know, because I love to learn from them, because they learn from me all the time, and I love when they also help me, and it's just a good feeling. I have one last question for you. Can you help us remember the 3 R's for recycling?
Yes. So the 3 R's is reduce, reuse, and recycle. For example, reduce. When you buy reusable water bottles, you don't need to throw away the plastic. When you buy reusable bags, you don't need to waste the bags that you buy in the grocery stores. And when you recycle, it's when you put all the recyclable waste in the correct container.
Thank you so much for all that information. It has been very helpful, and I'm pretty sure that I will practice it, and I hope you do at home too. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's an honor to be here.
Goodbye, guys. We will now begin our activity. Now, remember that the whole point of this activity is for you to remember what is it that we recycle and what we don't recycle. Now, before we start, I would like to show you what I found in my house that I need to get rid of. Now, I found a plastic bottle, a wrapper from a snack that I was eating earlier, a soda can, a plastic bag, some newspaper, some orange peels, and also a napkin, and also some snacks that I didn't finish. Now we will begin. I would like to remind you once again, the items that we recycle, that we put on this side, are going to be paper items, metal items, and plastic items. The items that we place over here on our trash side are items that may not be recycled. But remember, some items, even though they are not recycled, we can use them as compost. We will begin now. Now, I'm going to first start with my plastic bottle. My plastic bottle, am I going to recycle it, or am I going to put it on the trash side? I will give you 5 seconds to respond. All right, if you said recycle it, Miss Odo, you are correct. I am going to put it on the recycling side because my bottle is made out of plastic. And if you remember, plastic is one of the items that is a recycled item. Let's move on. My soda can. Now, I am again going to give you 5 seconds to respond, and then we will talk about if it's a recycled item or a trash. All right, if you said recycle it, Miss Soto, you are correct. I need to recycle it. A soda can is made out of metal, and if you remember, metal is one of the items that we also recycle. Alrighty, I have some newspaper over here. Now, is newspaper going to be a recycled item, or am I gonna have to put it on the trash? Remember, can it be used again? If it can, it's most likely a recycled item. If you said recycle it, Miss Soto, you are correct. Newspaper is paper, it's in the name, so it needs to be recycled. Now, I have some snacks over here that I didn't finish earlier, as you can tell, but are they going to be recycled, or can I put them in the trash? Remember, if I can use it again, I need to put it in the recycle. If I cannot, it needs to be trash. If you said trash, you are correct. The snacks cannot be made into anything else, so I need to put them in the trash. I have a napkin right here. The napkin. Is the napkin going to be recycled, or should I just put it in the trash? Think about what the napkin is made out of. And that is a big hint right there. If you said recycle it, you are correct. My napkin is made out of paper that can be turned into something else, so it can be recycled. I have a wrapper over here. Remember, if it can be turned into something else, it needs to be recycled. Think about what material my wrapper is made out of, and that would be a big hint for you. If you said recycle it, you are correct. My wrapper is made out of plastic, so I can put it to the side because I will recycle that. Now, I have a plastic bag with me. This is one of the plastic bags that you get at a store when you are grocery shopping. So am I going to recycle it, or am I going to put it in the trash? If you said recycle it, you are correct. My bag that I got at a grocery store is made out of plastic, and that is one of the items that is a recyclable item. My last item are these orange peels that I was eating earlier as a snack. Now, these orange peels might be a little tricky, so try to remember what we covered today. My orange peels, can they be turned into something else, or should I put them in the trash? If you said trash, you're probably correct. But remember that if you have a garden at home, you can also use these orange peels as compost for food for your garden. I hope this was helpful for you. I will now place my trash in the correct bins. I hope that you are now going to do this at home, and this will help our environment. Thank you. Hello, we've come to the end of our video. We have learned about what recycling is, what recycling looks like, what is it that we recycle, and we also learned the 3 R's of recycle. Remember, reuse, reduce, and recycle. Now, I know that you will take this information and use it in your house and in your school. I will see you next time. Goodbye.
morning and welcome back to Science News. I'm Joan Bucklow. We here at SN pride ourselves in keeping our ear to the heartbeat of every science event. Last week, our scientists and researchers tracked down the germ gang. This week, we will be taking an in-depth look at the environment and climate. First, what is the environment? Let's take a closer look. The environment is everything around us. All that surrounds us, the soil, water, plants, animals, it all makes up the environment. Now that we have that clear, you may ask yourself, our viewers, how is that different from climate? An environment is everything around us, but the climate is what the temperature usually is. This includes humidity, wind, rainfall, and meteorological elements that happen in the everyday. In simple terms, climate is what the conditions are for a period of 30 years or more in a particular area. For example, you can expect it to snow in the Northeast in January, and you can expect it to be hot in the Southeast in July. This is climate. Today, climate scientists split the Earth into approximately 5 main zones or types of climate. They are tropical, dry, temporal, continental, and polar. There can be differences, yes, in each zone. But today we're going to be taking a look at these zones with our climate specialist, Jake Kinlan. Jake will be reporting from each zone and give us an in-depth look at what these zones are like. Jake, where are you now?
Thank you, Joan. Yes, I'm here in the tropical zone. This zone is hot and humid, where the average temperatures are greater than 64 degrees, and there's more than 59, yes, 59 inches of precipitation a year. This climate zone experiences high temperatures all year round and lots of rain. You can set your watch by the daily rainstorm, it's so regular. But though it's warm here, the cloudy skies also mean that the tropics don't experience the highest temperatures worldwide. The hottest places in the world are found in the arid or dry zone. Yep, watch is right. Good, glad that's done. But though it's warm here, the cloudy skies also mean that the tropics don't experience the highest temperatures in the world. The hottest places in the world are found in the arid or dry zone. The tropical zone includes the Amazon basin of Brazil, West Africa's Congo basin, and the rainforests of Malaysia and Indonesia. Also, large areas of South America, Africa, and Asia. In the tropical zone, the climate is perfect for growing many different types of food crops, including sugarcane, soya beans, rice, and sweet potatoes. Delicious fruits like bananas and mangoes are grown in the tropics, as well as cocoa, coffee, and tea. That's good coffee. This is Jake Kinlan, reporting from the tropics. Back to you, Joan.
Thank you, Jake. That was very informative. Now we're going to go to the dry or arid zone with, wait, this can't be right. Okay, I'm telling you, they're telling me that this is correct. We're going there with Jake. Jake, we're going to you.
Hello, and welcome to Dry Climate. These areas are hot and dry, and will have the hottest temperatures in the world. And they are hot, let me tell you. Because there is so little rain in this climate, few animals and plants can survive. And trust me, I see where they're coming from. The plants and animals that do survive in this dry, arid area need very little water in order to do so, and most of them are able to store their own water. A dry or arid climate is described as a desert and can often reach temperatures well over 100 degrees during the summer months. Dry climates usually have only 2 seasons, winter and summer. Dry climates are found throughout the globe, particularly in Western North America, like Phoenix, Australia, Southern South America, Central and Southern Africa, and much of Asia. Woo! It's hot out here. If you want to live in a dry climate, you really need to make special adjustments. You need to wear sunblock. You need to drink lots of water. Be careful about overheating or getting heat stroke. And keep that head covered with a hat. I am really getting hot. And have air conditioning in your home. I'm feeling a little woozy. Let's get back to you at the SN station. Back to you, Joan.
All right, you be careful out there, Jake. Get some water and get inside. Thank you for that report. Now we'll be visiting our next climate location, Continental Zone. This is where our very own, I'm sorry, but this just still can't be correct. How is our very own Jake? Jake, I guess we're going right back to you.
Oh, yes, thank you, Joan. Here we are from the Continental Zone. As you can see, I'm dressed in both shorts and a jacket. Well, that is because here in the Continental Zone, there is both heat and cold, with extremes in both. It's called continental because this type of climate takes place on larger continents, located in the interior of large land masses, and are usually far from oceans. This climate is a little crazy. You can find hot summers here and cold winters. Thunderstorms in the summer and brutal snow and temperatures below 0 in the winter. Let's get back to you, Joan. This zone is making me feel like my Grandma Esther. I'm hot, I'm cold. I'm hot, I'm cold. I'm hot. Sorry, Grandma. I love you. Joan?
Thanks, Jake. I'm not sure how you're doing this, but you are doing some nice reporting out there. Okay, we have 2 more zones. Our next stop is the polar zone. Let's go right there.
Okay, made it. Okay, here we are in the polar zone. This climate does not have warm summers, and it doesn't normally get warmer than 0 degrees. It's definitely not warmer than 0 degrees right now. Here we have cool summers and very, very cold winters. The winters are so cold that there can be a permanent layer of ice. The polar region is located on the caps of the globe. It's getting pretty snowy out here. There is no direct heat from the sun. It is so cold that only research scientists, polar bears, and seals can live here. Very little grows here, and only in the short summer. The winters are long and dark. The sun is never higher than it is at sunset. It stays on the horizon. When I say cold, I mean 50 to 70 degrees below 0. If you walked out in that, your eyelashes would freeze closed. And I think mine are about to. Well, I think I better hand it back to you, Joan. Reporting from the Polar Zone and here for SN News, this is Jake. And I'm considering getting a new job.
Thank you, Jake, for that wonderful reporting. You stay warm. We have one zone left, the temperate zone. Let's go right there.
Oh, God. Oh, thank you, Joan. Well, as you can see, we're here reporting from the temperate zone. The word temperate really helps explain this fabulous zone you see all around me. This fabulous zone. Temperate means moderate, and this zone is very popular. If I was going to go shopping for a climate, this would be the first thing in my basket. It comes fully loaded with fall, winter, spring, and summer. Each season brings its special characteristic. While tropical and dry climates are very hot, and the polar is very cold, as Goldilocks would say, the temperature is just right. It has some hot and some cold weather, some rain, and a medium amount of snow. You can find this beautiful zone in two places, both north and south of the equator, and it circles the globe like a hula hoop just above the tropical areas at the equator, both on the north and south sides. If you look at the map, you can see it covers most of North America, all of Europe, and much of Northern Asia. If temperate zones was a girl, I'd ask for her number. Well, that's all from this zone. Back to you, Joan.
Well, Jake, I'm not quite sure how you did this, but you sure did. That is amazing. Thank you for that in-depth look in all our climate zones. Wait, I'm being told there's breaking news. Let's go to our studio meteorologist for this exclusive report.
That's right, breaking news here at SN. During this time, when factories have slowed down, less planes are flying, and people are not driving, there's been some serious changes to the environment. Let's take a look. Here's two pictures of China. This is from before, and this is from after. You can see how the air quality has really changed. Now you can see in front of you, ni hao. Here's a satellite view of the country. You can see how the coverage of pollution has really changed. Let's look at a picture of France. Bonjour, ça va, dégueulasse. You can see on this side in the before picture, the air was full of pollution. And now, it's totally clear. Sacre bleu, mon Dieu, incroyable. Let's take a look at New York. How you doing? This picture's from 2019. And this is New York today. Wow, what a change in air quality. Forget about it. As you can see, there's been a big improvement in our environment all around the world. Let's think about how we can keep our air clean from now on. That's it for me. See you later.
Wow, Jake, thank you for bringing us that breaking news. You really gave us something to think about. Remember, breaking news here first at SN News. Now we're going to go to our cooking segment. Chef, I hear you have something special for us today.
Hello everybody. Today we are going to clean water using the sun. Well, we all need clean water and we all have the sun, except in the winter in the polar zones as I understand it from that incredible report. Let's say you're stranded somewhere and in your environment you don't have any clean water. You could have the ocean or a river nearby, but you can't drink that water. What are you going to do? I have the answer for you. We are going to make a solar still. This still will make your water clean. So what you're going to need is a wide plastic basin, like a large bowl we have here, a smaller jar or glass for collecting clean water, and a large piece of transparent plastic, such as plastic wrap we have here, a string or a rubber band to hold the plastic in place, and you'll need a stone and some salt. First, we're going to need to make our dirty water. So we'll pretend that you're near the ocean, so we have to make salty water. We're going to mix the salt into some tap water and put the salt water in the bottom of your basin. There we go. Give it a little stir. And you make sure you place your collecting jar in the middle of your basin. Make sure the water, when you pour it in, we're going to make sure it's below the top of your cup. Here we go. You can see how salty and cloudy the water is. Okay, here we go. All right, and then you're going to cover your basin with the plastic wrap. There you go. Like here. So get it all covered up. Make sure it's tight around the edges. There you go. And then you're going to take your rubber band, or if you have a string, that'll work too. Going to make sure it's secured all the way around. Be careful with your glass. Okay, you got it all. And then you're going to place a stone on top of the plastic wrap and above your cup, just like that. Okay? And then you're going to carefully move your solar still into the sun for about an hour and a half. Okay, after a few more hours, when you take your solar still apart, taste the water in the collecting jar. But you want to kind of observe and look and see like what's happening underneath the plastic and where's the water going, and it's going into the cup. What happened? Did you notice the drops of water appearing on the inside of the plastic, and where did they come from? And try to think about and describe what has occurred to the water retained in the collecting jar. What happened? When water evaporates, just like in dry climates, it leaves all of its impurities behind. If there are any bacteria or dissolved salts, they are left behind in the basin. Only pure water evaporates and is condensed into the plastic and then drops into the collection cup. And taste it and see what does it taste like. Maybe too, you can taste a little bit of the salted water before you put it into your bowl, and then taste later with your cup and see the difference. And that's how you clean water. Remember, be inquisitive. Back to you, Joe.
Well, viewers, there you have this week's SN News. Next week, we'll be diving deeper into pollution. What is pollution and how does it affect us? Everyone here at Science News wishes you and yours the very best. I'm Joan Bucklew. Stay interested.
Hi friends, Mrs. Fletcher here, second grade teacher in the Osborne School District, and welcome to this edition of our Reading Corner, but outside in our outdoor library. Being outside right now is starting to get a little warm, but there's still great gardening going on, and I like to grow sunflowers, and along with sunflowers come these little friends, ladybugs. Ladybugs don't come with sunflowers. What are you talking about, Mrs. Fletcher? Well, sunflowers are sometimes covered with aphids. And you know who loves to eat aphids? Ladybugs. So, did you know that there's so many different types of ladybugs? I only thought there was one kind. No, there are so many. Ladybugs are also called lady beetles and ladybirds. And I've actually had ladybugs delivered to my house, and they really help my roses, and they help our sunflowers as well. This is a super great book, Little Kids' First Big Book of Bugs, and there are so many neat bugs in here that National Geographic has shared One of the things I'll tell you about this is that the lady bugs, also known as, like I said, lady beetles or lady birds, they don't stick around when it starts to get super hot. And also if you don't have a lot of food. So if they come in and do their job, eat all the aphids, all the bugs, they're going to leave and head north. So great thing, these ladybugs, we love them. They're super tiny. And when they're larvae, in the larva state, they actually look like little alligators. Super cool. So ladybugs. Another thing that I found outside is our woodpecker. And in Arizona, we have a bird called the Gila woodpecker. Yeah, isn't that awesome? And I have a book called Peck, Peck, Peck. And that's by Lucy Cousin. There's one of our friends, the woodpecker. Let's find out what this book is all about. Well, my friends, I think a woodpecker has been to this book. Let's check it out. Peck, peck, peck. Today my daddy said to me, it's time you learn to peck a tree. Now hold on tight, that's very good. Then peck, 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 peck the wood. Peck, peck, peck. Oh, look, yippee, I've pecked a hole right through the tree. He did. Look at, there's a little hole right there in my tree. Darling, you're such a clever bird. That hole you've pecked is so superb. Now off you go, my little one. Practice hard and have some fun. Let's go see, where's that woodpecker going? So off I flew, I couldn't wait, across the grass and onto the gate. Peck, peck, peck. Another hole. And now I'll peck this big blue door, then go inside and peck some more. Peck, peck, peck. Another hole. I peck the hat, I peck the mat, I peck the tennis racket and the jacket. Oh, look at all these things. Oh, my friends, there's all these holes in this book. I peck, peck, peck a magazine, a picture of Aunt Geraldine, an armchair, a teddy bear, and a book called Jane Eyre. Right there. Whoa, look at these things are pecked. I peck the shirt, I peck the skirt, some slippers, socks, and polka dots. Peck, 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 peck. Look at, oh no, underwear has a hole in it. Whoa, oh no. I peck the soap, the blue shampoo, I peck the sink and the toilet too. Peck, 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 peck. I peck, peck, peck an eggplant, a tangerine, a butter dish, a nectarine, a green bean, a sardine. And 17 jelly beans. Peck, 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 peck. I peck and peck and peck and peck. I peck, 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 peck until there's nothing left to peck. Peck, 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 peck. I've pecked and pecked, but now I'm tired. I've been so busy and rather dizzy. I think I'll fly back to my nest, find my dad, and have a rest. Oh, Daddy, I've had so much fun. You should see the holes I've done. I absolutely love to peck. I love, 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 love to peck. He's happy about pecking. That's fantastic, Daddy said, and now it's time you went to bed. Good night, sleep tight, I love you. I love, 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 love you. He gave him a peck, but it's a kiss. Oh, how fun. Who knew that being a woodpecker would be so much fun? So friends, I will see you soon. Thanks so much for joining me in this outdoor reading corner. I'm Mrs. Fletcher. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Hello again, I'm Mrs. Netherow. I'm a 6th grade teacher at Sunland Elementary in the Roosevelt School District. And today we're going to be working through a science lesson together. By the end of our lesson, I'm hoping that we will have a better understanding of how our actions as humans affect our environment. So what we'll be doing together is a quick sketch today. We'll be reading through this book titled Just a Dream for the majority of our lesson. And when we close up today, at the end of our 20 minutes, I'm hoping that you leave our lesson with some ideas on how we can take care of our environment to ensure a beautiful future. I want us to start our lesson today with a sketch. You're going to need a piece of paper and a pencil, a pen, crayons, whatever it may be, but it's just going to be a quick sketch. Imagine yourself waking up in the future. What kind of Earth do you hope to see when you get there? I want you to take 2 minutes to sketch or draw the future that you hope for. I'm going to start my timer now, and you're going to take 2 minutes on that piece of paper to draw what you hope for, what you want, what you desire for in your future. It could be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now. What do you hope the Earth looks like? What do you hope your life looks like? Whatever pops into your mind, you can go ahead and sketch it. Take about 1 more minute. Maybe you imagine robots. Draw a quick sketch of one. Maybe you imagine that everybody has the ability to fly. I'm going to have you quickly wrapping up what it is that you're drawing. Make sure that it's just a quick representation of what you're hoping for in your future, what you visualize in your mind. Get it down on that paper. I asked you to draw a sketch of what you dream for in your future. The reason why is because this book, Just a Dream, is about a boy named Walter whose dreams take him into his future. As I read this story today, I want you thinking about whether or not the future he sees matches the future you've drawn. Does he experience the future you want? Throughout the story, we'll see a number of illustrations that represent Walter's dreams and his future. When we see those illustrations and hear the text that accompanies them, I want us to think through these 3 questions. Where did Walter wake up? What did Walter see? And what might have caused Walter's future to look like this? At the start of the story, I'll think through these questions and the answers to them. Toward the middle, I'll help you think through them. And at the end, I'll want you to think through these questions and their answers on your own. By doing so, we'll be able to answer the question, how do our actions affect Earth's environment? Just a Dream, written and illustrated by Chris Van Allsburg. As usual, Walter stopped at the bakery on his way home from school. He bought 1 large jelly-filled donut. He took the pastry from its bag, eating quickly as he walked along. He licked the red jelly from his fingers. Then he crumpled up the empty bag and threw it at a fire hydrant. At home, Walter saw Rose, the little girl next door, watering a tree that had just been planted. "It's my birthday present," she said proudly. Walter couldn't understand why anyone would want a tree for a present. His own birthday was just a few days away, and I'm not getting some dumb plant, he told Rose. After dinner, Walter took out the trash. 3 cans stood next to the garage. 1 for the bottles, 1 for the cans, and 1 for everything else. As usual, Walter dumped everything into 1 can. He was too busy to sort through the garbage, especially when there was something good on television. The show that Walter was so eager to watch was about a boy who lived in the future. The boy flew around in a tiny airplane that he parked on the roof of his house. He had a robot and a small machine that could make any kind of food with the push of a button. Walter went to bed wishing he lived in the future. He couldn't wait to have his own tiny airplane, a robot to take out the trash, and a machine that could make jelly donuts by the thousands. When he fell asleep, his wish came true. That night, Walter's bed traveled to the future. Walter woke up in the middle of a huge dump. A bulldozer was pushing a heap of bulging trash bags toward him. "Stop!" he yelled. The man driving the bulldozer put his machine in neutral. "Oh, sorry," he said. "Didn't see you." Walter looked at the distant mountains of trash and saw half-buried houses. "Do people live here?" he asked. "Not anymore," answered the man. A few feet from the bed was a rusty old street sign that read Floral Avenue. "Oh no!" gasped Walter. He lived on Floral Avenue. The driver revved up his bulldozer. "Rah, rah, rah, rah." "Well," he shouted, "back to work." What might have caused Walter's future to look like this garbage dump? A garbage dump that is in his neighborhood, covering his street. Two things pop into my mind right away. I first think back to the beginning of the book when Walter took all of the trash from his home and dumped it into one garbage can because he was too lazy to sort out the glass in the cans and recycle. I also know from my own background knowledge that people produce a lot of trash, more trash than there is space for on our earth. Walter pulled the covers over his head. This can't be the future, he thought. I'm sure it's just a dream. He went back to sleep, but not for long. Walter peered over the edge of his bed, which was caught in the branches of a tall tree. Down below, he could see two men carrying a large saw. "Hello!" Walter yelled out. "Hello to you!" they called back. "You aren't going to cut down this tree, are you?" Walter asked. But the woodcutters didn't answer. They took off their jackets, rolled up their sleeves, and got to work. Back and forth they pushed the saw, slicing through the trunk of Walter's tree. "You must need this tree for something important," Walter called down. "Oh, yes," they said, "very important." Then Walter noticed lettering on the woodcutters' jackets. He could just make out the words, Quality Toothpick Company. Think along with me again. What might have caused Walter's future to look like this? I remember a scientific vocabulary word, deforestation, and I believe deforestation is what is making his future look like this. In this case, it's deforestation to create toothpicks. Walter sighed and slid back under the blankets until Walter couldn't stop coughing. His bed was balanced on the rim of a giant smokestack. The air was filled with smoke that burned his throat and made his eyes itch. All around him, dozens of smokestacks belched thick clouds of hot, foul smoke. A workman climbed one of the stacks. "What is this place?" Walter called out. "This is the Maximum Strength Medicine Factory," the man answered. "Gosh," said Walter, looking at all the smoke. "What kind of medicine do they make here?" "Wonderful medicine," the workman replied, "for burning throats and itchy eyes." Walter started coughing again. "I can get you some," the man offered. "No thanks," said Walter. He buried his head in his pillow, and when his coughing stopped, he fell asleep. This is so interesting and ironic to me. Walter's future looks like this because there is a factory that makes medicine for burning throats and itchy eyes. But the pollution causes burning throats and itchy eyes. Walter is asleep, but then Snowflakes fell on Walter. He was high in the mountains. A group of people wearing snowshoes and long fur coats hiked past his bed. "Where are you going?" Walter asked. "To the hotel," one of them replied. Walter turned around and saw an enormous building. A sign on it read, "Hotel Everest." "Is that hotel," asked Walter, "on top of Mount Everest?" "Yes," said one of the hikers. "Isn't it beautiful?" "Well," Walter began. But the group didn't wait for his answer. They waved goodbye and marched away. Walter stared at the flashing yellow sign and then crawled back beneath his sheets. People have turned Mount Everest into more than a hike, into a tourist destination in Walter's future. A hotel is built on top of the tallest mountain in the world in Walter's future. Here he is, crawled beneath his sheets, but there was more to see. Walter's hand was wet and cold. When he opened his eyes, he found himself floating on the open sea, drifting toward a fishing boat. The men on the boat were laughing and dancing. "Ship ahoy!" Walter shouted. The fisherman waved to him. "What's the celebration for?" he asked. "We've just caught a fish," one of them yelled back. "Our second one this week." They held up their small fish for Walter to see. "Aren't you supposed to throw the little ones back?" Walter asked. But the fishermen didn't hear him. They were busy singing and dancing. Walter turned away, and soon the rocking of the bed put him back to sleep. What we see in this illustration here could be caused for a variety of reasons, but I'm thinking two things. Two things I'm thinking for what might cause the lack of fish in the water would be polluted water, so it's not a good home for the fish, or possibly these waters have been overfished and there's nothing left to catch. Walter was asleep, but only for a moment. A loud, shrieking horn nearly lifted Walter off his mattress. He jumped up. There were cars and trucks all around him, horns honking loudly, creeping along inch by inch. Every driver had a car phone, a cell phone in one hand, and a big cup of coffee in the other. When the traffic stopped completely, the honking grew even louder. Walter could not get back to sleep. Hours passed, and he wondered if he'd be stuck on this highway forever. He pulled his pillow tightly around his head. This can't be the future, he thought. Where are the tiny airplanes and the robots? The honking continued into the night until finally, one by one, the cars became quiet as their drivers and Walter went to sleep. This particular illustration and text is something that I can really connect to, and I think you might be able to connect to as well. Because similar to what we see in the picture here, there is a ton of traffic here in Arizona as well. Walter's future is still filled with lots of traffic, and we know that traffic, exhaust from cars, trucks, vehicles, add a lot of pollution into our air. Walter's bed traveled on. Walter looked up. A horse stood right over his bed, staring directly at him. In the saddle was a woman wearing cowboy clothes. "My horse likes you," she said. "Good," replied Walter, who wondered where he'd ended up this time. All he could see was a dull yellow haze. "Son," the woman told him, spreading her arms in front of her, "this is the mighty Grand Canyon." I'm going to pause there for a moment. This is not what the Grand Canyon presently looks like. If you've been lucky enough to go there, you know that the Grand Canyon is full of vibrant, rich colors. But in Walter's future, It is foggy, it is hazy, it is dull and yellow. Walter gazed into the distance. Of course, she went on. With all this smog, nobody's gotten a good look at it for years. The woman offered to sell Walter some postcards that showed the canyon in the old days. They're real pretty, she said, but he couldn't look. It's just a dream, he told himself. I know I'll wake up soon, back in my room. But he didn't. Walter looked out from under the sheets. His bed was flying through the night sky. A flock of ducks passed overhead. One of them landed on the bed, and to Walter's surprise, he began to speak. I hope you don't mind, the bird said, if I take a short rest here. The ducks had been flying for days, looking for the pond where they had always stopped to eat. I'm sure it's down there somewhere, Walter said, though he suspected something awful might have happened. After a while, the duck waddled to the edge of the bed, took a deep breath, and flew off. Good luck, Walter called to him. Then he pulled the blanket over his head. It's just a dream, he whispered, and wondered if it would ever end. Then finally, Walter's bed returned to the present. He was safe in his room again, but he felt terrible. The future he'd seen was not what he expected. Robots and little airplanes didn't seem very important now. He looked out his window at the trees and lawns in the early morning light and then jumped out of bed. He ran outside and down the block, still in his pajamas. He found the empty jelly donut bag he'd thrown at the fire hydrant the day before. Then Walter went back home and before the sun came up, sorted all of the trash by the garage. A few days later, on Walter's birthday, all his friends came over for cake and ice cream. They loved his new toys, the laser gun set, electric yo-yo, and inflatable dinosaurs. My best present, Walter told them, is outside. Then he showed them the gift he'd picked out that morning, a tree. After the party, Walter and his dad planted the birthday present. When he went to bed, Walter looked out his window. He could see his tree and the tree Rose had planted on her birthday. He liked the way they looked side by side. Then he went to sleep, but not for long, because that night, Walter's bed took him away again. When Walter woke up, his bed was standing in the shade of 2 tall trees. The sky was blue. Laundry hanging from a clothesline flapped in the breeze. A man pushed an old motorless lawnmower. This isn't the future, Walter thought. It's the past. Good morning, the man said. You found a nice place to sleep. Yes, I have, Walter agreed. There was something very peaceful about the huge trees next to his bed. The man looked up at the rustling leaves. My great-grandmother planted one of these trees, he said, when she was a little girl. Walter looked up at the leaves too and realized where his bed had taken him. This was the future. After all, a different kind of future. There were still no robots or tiny airplanes. There weren't even any clothes dryers or gas-powered lawnmowers. Walter lay back and smiled. I like it here, he told the man, then drifted off to sleep in the shade of the giant trees. The trees he and Rose had planted so many years ago. Now that we've finished the story Just a Dream, written and illustrated by Chris Van Allsburg, I want us to recall some of the locations Walter saw of his future. So for example, the first location that he traveled to in his dreams, he found himself in his neighborhood, but not the neighborhood he knows well. He found himself in his neighborhood surrounded by garbage. He was in a garbage dump. Then he found himself sitting in a tree where he was able to see and notice deforestation to create toothpicks. And one more example of something he saw into the future was he traveled to the top of Mount Everest And there, instead of being at the highest point in the world, he saw Hotel Everest. I want us to think of some of the other locations that Walter found himself. What do all of the locations have in common? He traveled to many, many locations into his future, and he saw many examples of pollution, harm to the environment. But what did they all have in common? All of these locations represented harm to the environment, but if we take it one step further in our thinking, not only was the environment harmed, all of these were examples of harm that humans have done to the environment. Humans put extra garbage out. Humans cut down trees. Humans build hotels and create pollution. Would you agree that the sketch you drew at the beginning of this lesson didn't have any of what we saw in Walter's future? Did you have cut down trees in your sketch of the future? Do you dream of a world covered in garbage? Do you want smoke filling and polluting our air? I think it's safe to say that's not something any of us want in our future. So now what? If we want a beautiful future, we also need a healthy environment. So what are you going to do? What are we going to do to ensure that we don't have a future that looks like what Walter saw in his dreams? Let me give you 3 suggestions, and I want you to brainstorm the rest from there. The suggestions I have for you come from some of the mistakes Walter made at the beginning of the book. I suggest that we stop littering. I suggest that we take the time to recycle. And the last suggestion I'm going to give, if we can walk or ride a bike somewhere safely, let's do that to prevent the added pollution to our air. What are you going to do to ensure we all have a beautiful future, the future that you sketched at the start of this lesson? Thank you for spending the last 20 minutes with me. I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, and welcome to 7th and 8th grade science. My name is Mrs. Carlson, and we're going to talk about the environment today.
For today's quick write, I want you guys to really infer, why do birds have different beaks? I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and I give you some images to look at and reflect to think about, why do birds have different beaks? Go ahead and make sure that you have a pencil and a paper ready, and you have 2 minutes to begin your quick write. As you look at the different pictures, I want you to look at the different environments that each bird is in. I want you to look at the different foods that they are eating. Use your observation skills to defend your inference. You have about 1 more minute for your quick write. You have about 30 seconds. Go ahead and start wrapping up your thinking. Why do birds have different beaks? And that's our timer. So I want you thinking about the different environments where you have seen birds, whether that's in your backyard, whether that's on TV, whether that was the images here. And so when I look at these images, I think about the hummingbird and how they almost have like a straw-like beak so they can suck out the nectar from the flowers. It is their main food source. What did you write about? Why do birds have different beaks? What kind of food are they eating? Why do they need the different shapes and different structures in their beaks? I want you guys to think about that as I show you the next image as well. So I found this really cool picture of different types of bird beaks, and I want you to pick about 2 or 3 to just visualize, take a mental picture of, because today we are going to be working with a problem with bird beaks. And so pick about 2 to 3 that are your favorite. Like I said, I kind of like this one on the right with the nectar feeding. And there's some really cool, the filter feeding for the flamingo, and I want you to just visualize 2 or 3 as your favorite for today. As we jump into today's lesson, I want to go over 2 main vocabulary words. So the first word is adaptations. You can go ahead and say adaptations. They are traits and behaviors that help an animal survive. Here I have an example of what is called the bird paradise dance. So here's the male bird, and he's trying to dance to attract a female mate, but as you can see, she is unimpressed. So I want you to think about at least one example as you write down this vocabulary word. What can be an example of an adaptation? So here we have the bird and its dance and its colorful feathers to attract mates. What could be another example of an adaptation? Animal adaptations for different types of animals. Another one of my favorite, and I think is really interesting, is that the male peacock is actually the one with the colorful feathers to attract the female peacocks, and the female peacocks are actually just a brown color, similar to the birds here. My next vocabulary word is natural selection. So this is the process where animals that are better adapted to their environment are more likely to survive and reproduce, meaning that we'll continue to see that species. Now, something I want you to think about is we play a role in this as well, because as humans, we impact our environment in both positive and negative ways. And here I wanted to show us an example after the Industrial Revolution, and we played a negative impact on the environment. So on the left-hand side, I have a picture of what the trees used to look like in an unpolluted environment. And as you can see, the peppered moth blends in a little more with the trees. And so if I was a bird, it would be easier for me to eat the black moths. Whereas after the Industrial Revolution, where we started using a lot of coal and the air was more polluted and soot would cover the trees, the trees ended up being black. So now the moths that were black blended in better, whereas my peppered moths were more easily eaten. They're less likely to reproduce, and we're less likely to see those moths now they're being eaten by the birds. Today we're going to do a similar investigation, but this time you're going to be a bird. So let's read out our problem. You're a bird on an island trying to survive by eating enough food. Due to pollution, food is now limited and you need to compete with other birds to survive. So I'm going to need us to have a couple of materials. You're going to need 2 bowls with bird food from different environments. So it can be macaroni, beans, paper clips, whatever you can find in your house. I need you to find 2 to 4 different bird beak options. So I want you to look at objects around your house that are similar to bird beaks, like hair clips, binder clips, tweezers, forks, spoons, and it depends on the number of players. So if you're playing against your mom or your tia or your brother or sister, whoever lives with you, you can have all 4 people play. This can be a 2-person competitor game. It all depends on how many people you have available at your house. And then lastly, you're going to need cups for each of those people. So again, 2 to 4, and that's going to represent the bird's stomachs. And your goal is to survive by eating enough food. So select the bird beak that you predict will get the most food. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to find these objects in your house. So I want you to find different bird beak prototypes. So if you look on the picture at the bottom, you'll see that some of them are made from paper, from string, from straws, connecting two forks, connecting two spoons. So see what you can find around your house, get creative. And then on the right-hand side, you can see something as simple as M&Ms can represent the food. Go look in your cabinet, see what you have. And then the other materials will be 2 cups, plates, or bowls. So you have about 5 minutes. Go ahead and start looking around your home. Again, you're looking for 2 to 4 different types of bird beaks. We want them to be different because you're going to be competing. And I want you to find 2 to 4 different bird foods. You'll also need 2 cups to represent the bird's stomachs, and either 2 plates or 2 bowls to put out that food. You have about 2.5 minutes to look around your home or get creative and build. You have a little less than 2 minutes. Make sure to also ask a family member or someone who lives with you if they're willing to play and compete. We're about to go over the directions. You have 1.5 minutes to collect your resources. We have about 1 minute left. Make sure you have your bird beaks on the table per player. You can start putting the food on plates. "30 seconds. In our final 10, start setting up your area. And that is now that we have all the bird beak options on the table, I want you to create your hypothesis. So on that sheet of paper that we had, I want you to write, I think that blank bird beak will be the most successful because, and go ahead and state why. So out of the 2 to 4 bird beaks, which type, the type goes in this first blank, will be the most successful because why? I'm going to give you a minute. So does it have sharp like teeth on it? Does it have a spoon-like structure that's able to grab more food. What would make your beak most successful? You have a minute to write your hypothesis. Five seconds. Go ahead and wrap up your thinking. All right, and here are our directions. So step one, we're going to pick your beak type, which everyone should have their own different type of beak. Step two, you're going to set a timer for 1 minute and say go. Gather as much food as you can. So as a job, one person can set a timer and let us know when to start and when to stop so that we are fair. Step three, all food must go into your cup in order to count. So if it falls on the floor or on the table, it does not count. You need to make sure that it goes into the stomach or your cup. Step four, count up the amount of each food. You can estimate. So if you're using something like rice, you might need to estimate or get out those measuring spoons to accurately count up your data. Record the results for each beak type under the correct food type. And I'll go over this data chart at the end. Step five, when done with each food type, make sure your area is clean. We don't want any moms getting upset. Make sure you clean up your area and you reset with new food for the new round. Keep your same beak because this is our control. We're trying to see which bird beak would be able to survive in different environments. So keep your beak the same. And then lastly, at the very end of all rounds, we're going to count up our totals and answer our reflection questions for the day.
So for the first round, I'm choosing to use this penne pasta. This kind of reminds me of worms. The beak I chose to use is a hair clip, and I chose this because it seems to have like teeth and a lot of grabbing space. We have our cups to represent our stomachs. We have our two different beaks, so I've got a hair clip that I decided to use, and my husband's gonna go ahead and use the tweezers. Make sure to start your timer for 1 minute. So on your mark, get set, go. Remember, if it's on the table, it doesn't count. It has to be in the cup. Okay, and that's time. Stop. That's my husband's. We're gonna go ahead and count. 36.
45.
Yes, 45.
Now that you've watched my example, you can go ahead and conduct your own lab experiment, and here is what the data chart is going to look like. So on the left-hand side, we have the different types of beaks. So here are just examples, and you're going to write your own. I put binder clip, tweezers, fork, and spoon. In the example I did, it was actually a hair clip versus tweezers. And then the different types of food on the right-hand side. So here's macaroni, beans, paper clips, and then count up your total, whether that's counting up the items or using a measuring spoon to measure. I'm going to give you about a minute to go ahead and draw your data chart. So on the left-hand side, go ahead and write the different beak types. On the right-hand side, I want you to go ahead and write the different foods and then a column for the total. After you finish at least 2 rounds, you're going to count up the total amount of food and then finalize your thinking about which bird beak was most successful. So after my first round, I actually collected less and I was least successful. About about 10 more seconds. Okay, and that's our timer. So I need you to at least have where it says food type and beak type, and you know how to set up your data chart. And lastly, we're going to end with some reflection questions for you to answer. So my first question says, how does this lab investigation represent possible natural selection among birds? So think back to our vocabulary word that we wrote down. I want you to reflect and answer number 1. And then number 2, what would happen if all the bird types you experimented with flew to an island where no birds had been before, and the only type of food available was bean bugs? Which bird beak type would be the most successful? Which bird beak type would be the least successful? Explain your answer. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes. If you're planning on experimenting after, go ahead and write down my 2 questions. And I want you to keep in mind for number 1 that natural selection is a process that takes time. So even when I think about my example that I did in my experiment, even though I got less the first time, I might get more the second round or the third round. And natural selection is a process that takes many years. Animals don't just get to wake up and choose which traits they are born with or choose to change their traits. It has to do with the species that survive and reproduce, the ones that are best suited for their environment. Number 2 is really thinking about the bird beak shape, how much it's able to hold, thinking about the shape of a bean in comparison to the beaks you experimented with. What would be the most successful or the least successful? And explain using evidence. You have about 1 minute. We're in our last 30 seconds, so finalize your sentence or finish writing your questions. If after this episode you're going to experiment and then reflect. And that's my timer. I want to end with this silly photo, and I want to thank you for joining us today as we talked about the environment. So here you can see a butterfly, and remember our keyword was adaptations. So this butterfly has what we call the false eye spot. So it looks like it has 2 eyes to make it seem like it's a bigger creature than what it is. So I also want you to keep in mind before we tune in next week, look around at the different animals around you. What adaptations do they have to live here in the desert? And how can we be better to our environment and appreciate these animals? Thank you again and see you next week.
You've been watching Phoenix TV's Study Hall, brought to you by District 8 and our partners at Osborne and Roosevelt School Districts. Tune in Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. for more Study Hall. I hope you learned something today and keep up the great work.